Hey, Writers Atelier community. Racquel Henry, founder here at Writers Atelier. Um, so up front, I'm just going to say that this is a little bit of a bittersweet video. So you'll have to forgive me if I get a little choked up during it. But I have some news about the studio today, and it's probably one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. It's also one of the hardest videos I've ever had to record, this one. Um, but at the end of the day, it's a decision that I had to make. So we're coming up on 8 years of opening doors at Writers Atelier, and some of you don't know this, but really Writers Atelier as a company is much older than the actual studio space. The studio space was something I launched after I'd been editing books for several years. I'd always kind of wanted to have this community space for writers, similar to what you see in other states, like, Loft Literary Center and um, the Center for Fiction, right? I wanted to bring something like that to Florida. And while I have fully enjoyed, the entire ride, even the low moments, um, I've made the decision to close the studio space, the physical studio space. And there are several reasons for this that I feel like, technically, right, I don't owe anybody an explanation, but I do feel like I need to explain why I'm making this decision, especially because we've had so many loyal supporters of the space over the years. And you probably already know that the space is pretty costly. And we have actually, since the pandemic, so right when the pandemic started, we were moving spaces, if some of you might recall. We were actually pretty much being kicked out of our other space because they were going to tear it down and build a whole fancy new shopping center. And so we were in a little bit of limbo because we didn't know where we would go. And then we found this gorgeous space right there in Maitland, on a very nice, busy cross street, and beautiful, bright studio space. And we were very excited about it. And then the pandemic hit. COVID happened. So we never got to open those doors. Now, of course, people have gone back to normal and gone back into lockdown and gone back to normal throughout the whole pandemic. And, I've always felt it was my duty to keep our community safe. And, whether they chose to do other things on their own was another story, but I didn't want to be responsible for someone like coming into the space, possibly getting sick, right? And then, it was like because he came to our event. So I kept our doors closed. Now, while our doors were closed, unfortunately, I got sick. I've pretty much made this public info, but if you don't follow me on my personal pages, you might not know. But I got diagnosed with breast cancer last fall, and it's been just such a grueling experience. I'm really grateful. And before you all get who are just finding out, before you start losing your marbles, I am on the road to recovery. And in fact, like, I've already gone through chemotherapy, I've already gone through radiation, and I've already gone through surgery. So I'm still in like a second part of treatment that's supposed to be a little bit milder, although I still get a little sick during the week of it. But I'm on the road to recovery. I'm on the pathway. I have a chance to fight this, right? And I did get my diagnosis and everything, and like another diagnosis that was basically saying that I had no more cancer in me. So this is fantastic news, right? The thing is that there's a little bit of some aftermath, right, with all of this. I was really doing quite well with like my mindset, although I had, dark days. Mindset mostly was doing very well, and I was, just going going through everything and making it work and handling it, right? Um, but then there's this after part, right? And I think now that, I still have those appointments and I still have to go do specific things, but the amount of things, right, has decreased. And so I'm left with now time to think about, like, what just happened, right? And so me personally, right, in terms of like mental health, I have got to get myself back on track because I am not really in the best of places, from a mental health perspective. And, it's hard for me to even say that, but I feel like honesty is probably the best policy, right? As my mother taught me. I feel like, I need to be kind of upfront and honest about, where I'm at, and pair that with the pandemic stuff, right? Um, I have personally a lot of trauma from that, and it's, because I've now learned that I had some underlying things that did not get handled right accordingly, or didn't get handled at all. And so that is now being compounded along with pandemic stuff and breast cancer stuff. And so, I'm trying to sort of sort through all of that. I don't want to get too involved because that's like my thing to handle, right, and work out. But basically, what I am in therapy for all of this, so don't worry. um, but all of that to say that, like, I am not in the best place to like handle running Writer's Atelier on a like the physical space. I'm not in a position to really handle doing that right now. So that's one reason. I've got to work out my own issues and get that sorted before I could even begin to like think about opening doors and physical doors. And then I also have, been paying for this space for almost 3 years. We were just like 2 months short of the 3 years. And that, while I could continue to do that, that is not very smart, right? It's not smart from a business perspective. I think most business people would be like, why were you paying for an empty space for 3 years? And honestly, it was this hope, 2 reasons. This hope that I was going to get back to being somewhat normal Racquel, right? And be able to go back to running it. And then the second thing was, like, I didn't want to disappoint our community. So that's why I kept paying. And it's also really hard. I am a person where it's like really hard for me to let go of things. And even people, like, I get very sentimental. Like, I'm probably the most loyal friend that you'll ever have. And it's because I just feel this, like, I often feel a sense of obligation, right? And not just obligation, but like it's a caring thing, right? Like I feel like I need to be there, right, for people in our community, right? Our writing community. So that's why I've held on to it for so long. However, it is quite an expense. It's a pretty high overhead. And then me paying that every single month, that's not the best use of funds either for Writer's Atelier, right? So, I mean, we could be doing other things with that money to be able to reach and help more writers. So from a business perspective, it is not a very smart thing to do, right? The other thing is that, it doesn't look like this on the outside, but throughout this whole thing, I've been writing, and I've kept writing, and I've kept pretty much, working, although definitely not at my usual level. But my writing itself has taken a different direction, and it's sort of moving in an upward direction, right? And this is a good thing. Writer's Atelier takes a lot of time away from that. While I enjoy helping writers so much, it's one of my greatest passions. It probably always will be. I also, I'm a writer too. And throughout those years, those beginning years of Writer's Atelier opening its doors, I put my writing aside in order to be able to help other writers. Um, and this is not a bitter type of situation at all, but I've always put other writers' work and their well-being ahead of my own. And I want to be a writer, right? That was the whole point. Like that is my number one goal before anything else, even though I love helping writers. And so I need to take something off of my plate so that I can be able to so that my writing career can continue to grow. And there are a lot of things that I can't talk about. Like there's a lot of behind the scenes things that have been happening even throughout being sick, and I'm not going to be able to talk about them for a while. But I I do need to have that space so that I can really grow my writing career. And I had to kind of decide, what exactly was, more important. And it's not that you all are not important. You are, and I will still help writers, but I also had to put my writing career first. Total transparency. And so that's another reason for the decision. I need to have the time to be able to get to the next level in writing. Does that mean Writer's Atelier is actually going anywhere? Nope. I have been working too hard on this company to just totally let it go, right? So Writer's Atelier will still exist in the online space. And we've been existing in the online space for the last almost 3 years, right? That's the way we've been operating. That's the way we've been generating our income, and all that stuff is in the online space mostly. And the online space allows us, again, to reach more writers and to, have bigger impact. And to be honest, Writer's Atelier was never in my head meant to be strictly local. I always wanted to build a global brand. And, making this decision will allow us to take that next step. And if we're being totally honest, yes, we've done fairly well over the last few years. We've survived a pandemic, right? But the company hasn't grown to the point that I want it to grow to. And so, again, this decision will, I believe, help us grow to the level that I would like to see Writers Atelier reach. And we're still always here. We're still always going to be a community. We're still always going to help writers. We're just taking a branch, right? We're just sort of taking a branch of the company and tucking it away. Now, once I get myself back to at least some semblance of normal, I will reevaluate at that time. But I don't know if we'll have another physical space again, maybe. But even if we don't, we will go back to hosting events in person, because we don't only have to host events at our own space. And we will, revive some of the things we've done before in-person event wise. And yeah, we'll just go from there. But I want you all to know that this was a really hard decision for me. I was it took me a long time to make it, as you can see, paying for the empty space, right? But also, it just wore on me, because I know so many people love this space. So many writers love the space, and I love it too. But I also had to just really make the right decision. And deep down, I knew that this was the right decision, even though it was a painful decision. But I want you all to know how much I so appreciate all the support you've given us. There have been so many writers who were regulars, right? Like, you were always in the space, every event. You signed up for our Patreon, right? And you were in there since the beginning, right? Paying every month, towards making the space work. And I just want to say thank you to those of you who have really just been there from the start, and all the ones who joined in and are still here. But to anybody who supported us, thank you so much for doing so, because I couldn't have done it without you. Writing is sort of a lonely endeavor, and to be honest, being a business owner is kind of that way too. But you all have made it feel very community oriented, and you've really just been great. So if you are disappointed, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry you're disappointed, because I and I'll be honest here, I cried a lot about this, but again, it's a decision I just had to make. And I hope that you'll stick with us as we try to really find our footing in the online space. I think we are almost there. I think we're in a good space, but we're trying to really plant right ourselves. And I hope you'll stick with us, because we have some really exciting things planned and coming up for 2023. We are going to be ramping up again. And again, a lot of stuff had to get tabled while I worked on my health. And I still am working on my health, but now, I'm feeling a lot better, right? And we're about to revamp Writers Atelier books again, and we have some product launches that we're planning as well for 2023, like fun writing things, writerly things, and of course classes. We're working with some really talented writers who have just had these amazing careers. I feel so lucky to be able to even talk to these writers. So we'll be doing, more classes every month, and the Write Gym is always still there, of course. And while we are going to scale it back on Patreon, because again, Patreon also takes up time, but it's also, I feel like, a little bit more tied to the physical space, right? So we're kind of letting Patreon take a rest, go to sleep. And if you're a patron, then I hope you'll maybe join our Write Gym membership or join our free community. We have our free online community, as always. And again, for anybody watching this, and maybe you didn't hear, maybe you haven't kept up with us for a while, but we did launch our own network for writers last fall. So yes, I launched that right when I was going through the beginning stages of my of my diagnosis. So I know that was wild. That was a wild thing to do, but you know what? We did it, and it happened. So I hope you'll join us there. I mean, it's a totally free community, and it's to replace our Facebook community. As much as Facebook is convenient, this community gives us a little bit more reach because we can control it, and people will actually see our posts. So I hope you'll join us. We're going to be hosting all our classes inside there. All our free stuff is going to be in there as well. Like when we do free classes and events, they're all going to be through our community, our network. And there's also an app. So you can actually, it's actually like our own little Facebook. We've got groups in there. It's an app. You can have Writers Atelier notifications. You can have a profile, friend people, follow people, all of that stuff. It's kind of cool. pretty cool. So I hope you'll join us at least in there. Keep up with us. You can always sign up for a newsletter, of course. And yeah, I hope that you'll continue to stay part of our community. And we're not really going anywhere. We're just moving our physical house into a virtual one. So thank you all so much for being here. And you know how to find me if you need me. Reach out if you need anything. And Writers Atelier is not going to stop helping writers. So hope you'll still come along for the ride. All right. If you'll have questions about any of this, feel free to just, message me, or you can actually put a comment on YouTube, because this will go in YouTube, or you can email me. I will say, though, don't message me on Facebook. I'm probably not going to check it. Sorry, I'm not on there as much, and if you message me there, I check that once in a blue moon. But I'm on Instagram, and you can always email me or put a comment here and down on the YouTube channel. Thanks again. I feel like, I hope I didn't disappoint too many people, but I do want you to know that I love the writing community very much, and I'm still going to do all that I can to help you all. All right, everybody. Hopefully I'll see you in our virtual spaces. Thanks again so much for being part of the Writers Atelier community, and let's make 2023 a great year. All right, everybody. Bye.